Good morning, everyone. We are on pot of coffee number 2, and this isn't just a regular size French press. This is like the big one. So we're drinking a lot of coffee today, and I'm going to get some beans grinded for our coffee, and then I'm going to clean this bad boy out because Ariel is going to be grinding some mustard seed for us today.
All right, second cup of coffee has been completed, so we're ready to get going. I'm very excited about this mustard today that we're making. We're actually going to be making 2 different kinds and fermenting some seeds for later down the road. We just ran out of mustard probably about a month ago. When we make it, we usually like to make quite a bit so we have enough for the year, and we will be canning it too. If you're not interested in canning it, don't let that discourage you from making your own mustard at home. It's delicious, and you can whip up a small batch and just put it in the fridge and have your own homemade mustard. It is very simple and affordable to make, and it is quite literally just 2 ingredients: water and mustard seeds or mustard powder, or in most cases a combination of both of those. We've been making our own condiments for a few years now, and we really like doing it because of the flavor. We just have fun doing it, so I would encourage you to also try it if you're interested in that. Let's jump right into what you're gonna need. So I have 2 different seeds with me today. I've got yellow mustard seeds, which are more mild than brown seeds, and brown seeds are more pungent. So think of like spicy brown mustard or like a grainy mustard. Usually they have a combination of both of these, or they're just brown mustard seeds. We also have mustard powder on hand, and this is yellow mustard powder. I specifically bought this variety. I've used this before in the past, and you can also get powders from the other seeds. We are actually going to be grinding up some of our own today, and that's what it looks like. These are what the brown seeds look like. We're gonna jump into that a little bit later as to why you'd wanna use one versus the other. So like I said, all you need is water and the mustard powder and or seeds. But from there, you probably are gonna wanna add some other things. Traditionally, salt is used, so we have some salt and vinegar. We have apple cider vinegar. I have some wine vinegar and distilled white vinegar. So don't limit yourself to what kind of liquids you can use. That's just depends on the recipe. It depends on your creativity. We are only gonna be using 2 of these today. And then we also have a sweetener, which is honey. So you can use sugar or other forms of sweeteners. Mustard is not that complicated. We have made it different ways every time in the past. So we don't have like a perfect recipe that we're sticking by. So beyond the ingredients themselves, those will have an effect on the mustard, but also the temperature of the water is really important. So if you're using warm water, they say that's gonna give you a more mild mustard. So you're basically gonna minimize, I think, the reaction that's happening with the mustard seed or the mustard powder. Whereas if you use cold water, you're really gonna get the hottest, most pungent mustard you can get. The vinegar, when you put the vinegar into your mustard, that's gonna set the acidity. So at that point, it's tempering it. And the sugar, what we can think of that if we're adding that, almost like if you're adding a sweetener to something that's really tart, you're going to enhance and kind of balance the flavor out. And in that way, you will be kind of toning down the overall bitterness of the final product of the mustard. That's probably more than enough of a background than you needed. So let's jump right into it. The first thing you're gonna want is a non-reactive bowl. So we have a porcelain bowl here, and we're gonna be canning these mustards. And I have a little pot here filled up with water. This is not a true water bather, but we're using it in that way. We have little bands down at the bottom with a towel set on top. So I'm going to heat up these clean jars. And I'm hoping for 6 of each types of the mustard we're making, but we'll see how much we make. The first mustard that Eric and I are making is traditional or classic American yellow mustard. So kind of what you would imagine, that bright, smooth mustard that you squish or squeeze on a hot dog. That's the recipe we're going for. We've yet to make that one before. This recipe just uses yellow mustard powder. You could definitely grind yellow mustard seeds if you want. We're using the powder. It uses white distilled vinegar and salt and turmeric along with a few other spices. The turmeric is usually what gives it that really bright yellowy, almost borderline orange color. I don't have actual proportions for anything that I'm doing today. We're just totally gonna be winging it. I've got a pretty good feel for this, and based upon how things turn out for me, I will list those exact ingredients in the description box if you're interested. This is just some old mustard powder I had. So I'm going to dump that in there first. And I think I'm going to use about 4.5 cups of powder to begin with. Before we add our water to this, I'm going to get the garlic and the turmeric ready. We have fresh turmeric. We found it at the store. You can definitely use powdered turmeric or garlic powder if you have that. Do you smell it?
I just see that color is amazing. You're not going to need all those, I don't think. Whoa.
The first ingredient I'm going to add is water. We have cold water. And again, I don't know how much I'm using, so I'm just going to kind of add it and get this process going. We're going to see how much we need. Whoa, it really smells like, just smells like good, like a horseradish almost. And I'm going to leave it really thick right now. I have the full 2 cups of water in there because we're going to add some more ingredients and I don't want it to get too runny. Let's add the turmeric that Eric ground up for us. We have 1 full head of garlic in here and I think 3 like rhizomes of turmeric. I'm going to dump that in. We're going to add a little bit of smoked paprika. This is in a secondary container, so probably about a teaspoon. And then same thing with salt, about a teaspoon of salt. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. This stuff's actually burning my eyes. That's how hot it is. I wasn't going for a hot one. Obviously, I used cold water. In the past, we've used warm water. And I mean, I just feel like our mustard always turns out a hair too spicy, even though we really like pungent mustards. This is yellow powder though, so immediately it's already not as pungent as the brown mustard that we usually make. We're gonna add our vinegar now. I think we're gonna go for it and just see what happens. It's obviously too thick right at the moment. You could hit this with an immersion blender if you didn't want those chunks. I don't think we're that concerned about that. So let's get our vinegar in there. Start with about a 1/4 cup. Wow. I'm going to add a splash more vinegar. I don't want to add too much vinegar. So we're still under a 1/2 cup altogether. I'm going to add a splash more water as well because it's just too thick right now. We don't want it that thick. Based upon a taste test that pretty much just smacked me in the face, really pungent. We're going to add a little more vinegar. That is really hot. And they say mustard in the first 24 hours is usually really strong. So usually you put it in the fridge, you let it cool down, and it'll be a little bit less potent when you try it. Eric and I are doing a little bit of troubleshooting. This is clearly very thick still. Maybe I used too much mustard powder. And it's also very strong still. A little too strong. So I did not plan to add sugar, but I think I'm going to be adding sugar to mellow this one out. This is just like extremely hot mustard. So we're up to about 3/4 cup of the distilled vinegar. I have the white wine vinegar. I'm going to try a little bit of that in here. Actually, you know what I want to do first is I want to add water. I'm going to add more water. Probably about 1/2 cup. I know we're doing all sorts of stuff I just said we weren't going to do, but that is probably the perfect consistency. You can tell by my high-pitched voice that it's still a little hot, but the sugar, we probably put about a 1/4 cup of sugar, and that really toned it down. I mean, it's so much more manageable now. I actually really like it now. Eric agrees this is the perfect flavor for us. I'm definitely going to call it like a spicy hot yellow mustard. It's not as much like the traditional yellow mustard I was going for, but I think we are ready to can it. So we're going to get our jars ready and get this into some jars. We're gonna get 6 jars, just like we hoped for. Perfect amount. Got 6 jars exactly. That's That's awesome. Actually, I have a little to spare. These are ready to be processed, probably for about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I want to make sure that they seal. That water is hot. Well, those look nice. We're gonna get these all pulled out and then we're gonna start on our second recipe. Today's a little bit of an experiment, especially with the first mustard. I was thinking we want the second one to be very sweet. So I want to think like honey mustard. And I want to use brown mustard seeds just because we have those. We've used them a lot in the past and I've never tried grinding them. So I'm going to be using that spice grinder from earlier. You definitely don't have to grind up mustard seeds. As I mentioned before, there are mustards that, you know, fully utilize the whole seed themselves or even the texture, you know, if you kind of mash them up or blend them in a blender. We've done that too. So I'm going to get started on this and I think I'm going to call it a sweet brown mustard. This turned out pretty good. There are some of them didn't quite get ground up all the way, but I'm not going to worry about that. And I am going for a smooth consistency, so I will be straining this when it's all said and done, but you could definitely leave that texture. It's pretty nice. And the inside of the brown seeds, turns out it was yellow as well. So interesting. We're going to add 2 cups to this bowl, and then I am also going to be doing 2 cups of the yellow mustard powder in this just to kind of tone it down a little bit. I feel like we are making art here. This is very, very exciting stuff. We want to use warm water on this recipe. So Eric has a little bit of water heated up for us in this kettle. It's not scalding hot or anything, it's just warm. And then because we're also using honey in this recipe, I'm going to be transferring this to a Dutch oven. I want to make sure that it melts in there and gets the consistency we want. Now the last few times we made mustard, we went about it a whole different way. And we soaked the seeds first. And this, when you add the water, you can just tell there's definitely a reaction going on because your eyes just like burn. So that is still probably quite a bit, not enough water. I'm going to add most likely a little more water, but I'm going to add some salt. And I'm also going to immediately add our sweetener. I think we're going to do a cup of honey, but we may add more. And we're doing apple cider vinegar for this one. Perfect. Don't think we need to worry about that. The girls were gracious to us this year, and we find that we're not using our honey that quickly. I'm gonna add a little bit more. It's already way more mild than that first one, so. And I'm just gonna heat it up a little bit more. It is a hair on the thin side, so I want to heat it up a little bit. Maybe we'll get some of that moisture out of there. This is bubbling. We let it heat up for maybe 4 minutes or so, and I did end up using all of the honey. So there's 2 cups of honey in there. We're going to put this through a strainer. I want that smooth consistency. You could definitely leave it. It's really beautiful now, and it's reminding me of spicy brown mustard with a little bit of sweetness. This isn't quite going how I anticipated. I thought it would strain through a little better. It is working, but it's taking a considerable amount of time. I tried even hitting this with the immersion blender. I think what we're going to do is blend this and see how we can not waste this, because I don't want to not use all this really good stuff. I just don't want that thick of a texture. You can see what we have ended up with is a really beautiful consistency. So that's more along the lines of what I'm hoping for. When all else fails, make coarse ground mustard. This isn't actually coarse ground mustard. Eric like pulverized it, and it is so smooth and beautiful. We both agree it's probably one of our favorite mustards we have made to date. We haven't made that many, so I guess that's not saying much, but this one's delicious. Perfect amount of sweetness. It's surprising how mild it is with the brown seeds too. And I wanted to show you these ones from earlier already sealed. So those are all good to go. We've got to get these in some jars and do the same thing. Okay, the last thing we are doing with mustard today is fermenting some for a future recipe. We are going to make some Dijon mustard down the road. And the first thing I have to do is separate my kefir from the whey. So this is turned over already. And I've got a little strainer on top to catch the grains. And the muslin cloth is underneath that, and that's going to separate the cheese part of the kefir or the yogurt, and then the whey is going to come out. We're going to set this aside. There we go. We top this off with some fresh milk and the grains. Kefir is a fermented drink food, so I've never done this way, but I was doing some reading, and when you're fermenting the mustard seeds, it's helpful to add like a starter or a jump starter from another culture. So we're going to be using a little bit of the whey, and it's really simple. We're not making too much. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of brown seeds and a 1/4 cup of yellow seeds. Let's go ahead and add that into the jar. Right in there. We've already got a cup of water set aside, and I need to add 1/2 a teaspoon of some kosher salt. You could also use sea salt. So we have a 1/4 cup of the whey. I'm just going to add that to our water. You can see it's a little bit cloudy, and that's it. We're done. I'm going to put this in the jar, give it a good stir. I only ended up using 1/2 cup of that water I had set aside. I think that that's probably going to be enough. If it ends up being too much moisture at the time, I'll probably add some powder, but we've got our ferment going, and I've got the cap screwed on. We're going to leave it on the counter and just burp it every few days. It should bubble and fizz a little bit, and that's how you'll know that it is fermenting. This is something I've been wanting to try, and the reason why we didn't do all our mustard this way is because we don't have the appropriate storage for fermented foods. You'd want to put them somewhere cool because they continue to ferment, and we just don't have that. We just have our ice chest, so that is why the canned mustard works better for us, but I'm excited for this. We're moving right along. We were not going to just make mustard on today's agenda. We are also working on what I'm going to call a berry butter. And if you're familiar with like apple butter, it's going to be similar to that. We're going to be using high bush cranberries and watermelon berries. Those are both berries found here in Alaska. So think kind of like cranberry apple butter. That's a little bit of a spin on that recipe. And watermelon berries are awesome, picked near the end of the season. That's when we harvested these. They're super ripe. They taste a lot more like a raspberry, I found. So I think that's going to be a really nice balance with the tartness of the high bush cranberries. We're usually really busy in the summer months and the late summer months. So sometimes we don't get time to process all of this, and we now have time, being that it is midwinter and there's a bunch of snow outside. We have time to get this processed. I'm going to be putting just the high bush cranberries in this Dutch oven. And the reason is they have a pretty big seed that I don't want to end up in the final product. So I have to make sure that I strain that out. But we're gonna get the apples peeled and chopped up, and we're gonna add these straight into the mixture. I'm gonna have Eric help me with that. Otherwise we will be here until the next century.
That's about a 4-footer. We've got the apples and the watermelon berries also cooking down, and we're gonna treat this a lot like the apple butter. So we're gonna add the same spices: cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, and we're gonna do ground cloves. And then these are gonna cook down for quite a while. We need to get everything really soft. Cinnamon. Oh my gosh, you got them all right here.
Well, that only took about half an hour, and we've used these a lot in recipes in the past. They have a really nice tart flavor. They're a lot of moisture, so they're a little bit liquidy, but there is some jelly component to it. I have added pectin to thicken things up, but I think those apples are gonna make a really nice sauce. You can see the seeds too, they're huge. That's all we're left with for the high bush cranberries. This is all of our liquid, beautiful liquid. And I'm gonna combine this back with the apples and the watermelon raspberries that we immersion blended. Wow, look at the color. We've done our first taste test and we opted for adding sugar. We will be adding sugar now. It is just a little too tangy, I guess. So I'm probably gonna add about half a cup. And we're gonna see what that tastes like. And then we're also adding some lemon juice, and we're going to let this cook down a little bit more. It's almost the consistency that I want. Our berry sauce cooked down for about an hour and a half. You can see it's receded quite a bit, and it is a beautiful thickness. Got these jars ready to go. We're gonna do the same thing we did with the mustard. I'm probably gonna water bath it for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that's it for tonight. We're calling it quits after that.
Dinner time has rolled around again, and it has just been snowing on us outside for like a few days. So we're inside cooking dinner tonight, and we're gonna celebrate all this delicious canned food that we made. And everything sealed, everything turned out awesome. We're gonna be using some of these, actually all of them, for toppings on our dinner tonight. And we're gonna start with cooking up some ptarmigan breast. These are 12 ptarmigan breasts that we harvested about a month ago. So these have been just awesome to have these in the freezer. And we're gonna make these kind of special tonight. We're gonna top them with a little bit of truffle salt. If you like truffles, this stuff is awesome. So you just need a little bit of this. We're gonna do a little bit of pepper, and we're gonna cook them in some olive oil. We were at the thrift store the other day, and I found a pasta maker or pasta roller. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but I know Errol's been wanting one of these for a long time, and I think they're like, there's two different ones. One was $50 and one was $80 brand new. And we've been kind of like, we don't really need it that bad. And I found this at the thrift store and I was super stoked on it, but it was just these 2 pieces and I knew it was missing the crank handle. So I literally searched around for like an hour through like silverware and all this stuff. And I actually found the crank handle. So we're gonna try this thing out today. This bolts it down to the counter or secures it to the counter. And then this is our little crank. But we're not rolling out pasta today. We're rolling something different. So we're gonna grab the dough that's been chilling outside. Oh, you got some snow on it.
Yeah, it should be chilled.
Okay, so you can do different thicknesses, but
there we go.
I would honestly, we've never done this before. I'm gonna give it a go. It does different thicknesses. 1 is really thin like paper. 7 is still pretty thin, but we're gonna try it on 5. I'm gonna feed it through like this. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, I can tell it's already
It's too thin.
too thin.
I'd say go as thick as you can.
Okay, so let's put it on 7. Whoa, hey, look at that. That's pretty thin too. Level 7, that's it. That seems to work. And this is obviously way too thick to feed through there. So I'm gonna roll this one out just like I did that one. This thing's pretty cool. I could not do that by hand, I don't think. At least it would take me a long time. Look at that. Absolutely perfect. Ariel's gonna come in here and we're gonna get dinner ready.
This is not just any dough either. This is puff pastry dough. We made it a little bit earlier today and we've been making sure it stays nice and chilled. So we've got it's salt, ice water, flour, and a bunch of butter. And then you kind of like layer it and roll it out and layer it again. This thing's doing a great job at rolling it out. That is what we're making for dinner. We're making like little puff pastry bites. Is that what you call them?
I don't know what I'd call them, but there's gonna be
Appetizers.
ptarmigan in them.
Thick right there is what's going on. That's perfect.
She's fine. She rolls it like through like nothing. Look at
That's
that.
the thickest setting, right? That's like as thick as you can go.
That's as thick as you can go, which is not that thick.
That's perfect for this. Check it out, my
Oh
friends.
my gosh.
Okay, so
We done with this thing?
yes, puff pastry time. I'll keep it cold. I may have to put it even back outside.
3?
Yeah.
Like that?
That's up to you. That looks good to me.
Okay.
This is. I'm really excited about that little gadget.
Yeah,
What am I
you-
gonna call her? The pasta maker?
It's a pasta roller, yeah.
Mi pasta rolla. Along with ptarmigan on these bites, we are going to be adding some of the mustard that we made, and it has sat now for 24 hours. This one is, I mean, like, couldn't be more pleased with the consistency. It's absolutely beautiful, and it is very, very hot. Like, too hot, honestly. It's reminds me a little bit of a wasabi. This spicy brown one turned out really good too. And even with the 2 cups of honey that we added, you still only get a hint of sweetness. This one's actually my favorite. I think we probably perfected a recipe. This one turned out really good. It reminds me of something you'd get in the stores. And then the berry butter, we're calling it, turned out awesome as well. And we ended up adding 2 cups of sugar in this too. So it has quite a bit of sugar to kind of balance out the tartness. It is really good. I feel like it needs to be like added to something, but it is good. So I'm excited to try it on this. And then we also have a can of onion jam that we're going to be adding to them as well. Smaller square if you want a rectangle. I'm not that creative, so I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm gonna do that piece of ptarmigan. Very butter.
I'm going to do mine like a cannoli.
Are you doing the roll?
I don't know.
I'm doing like a little.
Square?
You know what? I need more.
Is that oil in there, Eric? That's not.
That's olive oil. Look at this, sweet and spicy with the onions.
I'm going to close mine. Okay, those are going into the oven at 400 or a little bit under, and I think they cook for like 20 plus minutes or so. Let's hope they turn out good. Wow, look at that one.
This one we're going to do an egg wash. This is a scrambled egg with a little bit of water, and we're going to do some sesame seeds on these ones. See how these turn out.
It's time to eat, and they look awesome. I think they turned out really good, actually. I think the puff pastry turned out pretty nice. These ones are colder, so we should probably eat those. Those just came out.
Yep, let's try one.
Got a little bit of honey on that half.
Here we go. This one has the
You probably not gonna be able to tell until you eat it.
berry butter and ptarmigan. I know that much.
This one's mustard. I can tell.
Mmm. I want to try one with a lot of that spicy mustard. This one has a lot of spicy mustard here.
If you're not familiar with ptarmigan, it's an upland bird, and it's really dark meat.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, this time around, they're really tasting. It tastes to me like beef.
I know.
Oh, it just tastes like I'm eating a steak, doesn't it?
The brown mustard and the yellow mustard's like not spicy at all on here.
I agree. This is totally a bunch of yellow mustard, and it's not that hot at all.
No, I was putting a ton on there, and everyone was like, "That's gonna be way too hot." But the flavor is just like a good, flavorful mustard, not spicy at all.
The pastry is really good. I like the puff pastry. It's real flaky and
It
puffy.
reminds me of something.
A puff pastry. A streusel?
No, like a...
A streusel?
Well, I am definitely a big fan of the Ptarmigan bites. That's what we're going to call these. And I'm still excited about all this awesome stuff we were able to can.
Absolutely. I think we both agree that we could probably have put even more
Yeah. Sauce.
sauces on these because it's just really, they turned out really nice. They're really great.
Yeah.
And I am thrilled too about the stuff we canned since we were low on our jellies and jams and we were completely out of mustard. And a jar like this, just for example, will last us about a month in the fridge or in our ice chest. So we just throw this in there and use it when we want it. Yep. And we definitely made like a year's worth of mustard. So that is awesome. That was our goal and we achieved it.
It's awesome. And homemade mustard, it's cheaper, it's delicious, and you can make it yourself.
We'll catch you on the next video.
I want a spicy one, and I like the honey. Okay, look at that.
How
that
about
has a ton of
we just
yellow.
do ourselves a favor? You know, I ate one like that, hun, and it wasn't that spicy
If
at all.
this isn't spicy, then...
No, it wasn't really spicy at all.
And you were like, yeah, totally. Honestly, I'm just really happy about all the stuff we were able to can this day in our life.
I think we both agree they could probably use... What'd you say?
I'm pretty excited about all this cool stuff we were able to can. Well, I am definitely a fan of the ptarmigan bites, we're going to call them, and I'm still pretty excited about all this cool stuff we were able to can. Well, I am definitely a fan... Just one more time. Ready?
What are you playing with?
Frickin' laser beam.